All right, Steve, put you on the spot.
All right.
What's the difference between large language model, big frontier gnarly, we're talking Anthropic, OpenAI, Gemini, all that good stuff, way over, the big gnarly stuff that's out there, and maybe more bespoke kind of SLM or SLLM, small language models.
Yep.
I don't know if I got that right, but we were off camera talking about that. So what's the difference between the big ones and the small ones?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest difference is the amount of compute power that is required for a large language model, and that's why you have the big players out there that are obviously well funded and have the NVIDIA boxes to servers to really crank through it. But I think that the interesting thing around SLM or small language models is they're starting to gain a little steam because what has happened is larger enterprises have kind of gone from what is this AI thing to let's do some projects to let's integrate LLMs into everything. Okay, now let's do RAG. Now let's do RAG plus. Now agentic RAG, and it's kind of grown and grown. And what is happening is that you're taking like big tool sets, right, and throwing it at it a small business problem potentially, right, and that gets costs up, right. It's like using a chainsaw to kind of solve something that a screwdriver would fix. And so I think that you have companies like IBM for sure. I saw a post from Armand Ruiz this past weekend around kind of the move to SLMs, and obviously IBM's going to promote that. They've got Watson X, which really helps a package of software that helps large enterprises kind of navigate the AI world and tools and utilities for all that. So that obviously Armand's going to pump that. But the main point of his post was really around, what's the business problem to solve? And then using the right tool to solve that problem. And I think what has happened and what we've seen is everybody has the shiny object that they want to use, and then they sort of throw that shiny object or the latest model that comes out, right, ChatGPT 5, and they throw that at the problem, and it still comes back to, okay, are we using the right tool to solve the problem at the right scale, the right size, et cetera. So I think there is a balancing act between that, and that's why, certainly IBM's pushing their tool sets to help with that. They've got IBM Consulting. That's something that we do as well, right? Whether or not it's Aurora and the retail side or others, but you really need to look at the problem at hand and then the technologies that are available to you to solve those problems.
Yeah, it's well said, and I think just building on that, I think it was 2 weeks ago. I think it was my 40th newsletter, if I remember correctly. But this notion of agent washing, right? And there was this great Gartner analysis where they used a very transparent and credible framework to evaluate and say, hey, this is what an autonomous agentic workflow and therefore technologies look like, and then they evaluated thousands of technologies that appeared to be suggesting that they were agentic or agent, and it turns out 99% of them did not pass the test.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, which is wild. But I think it speaks to a broader challenge / opportunity that you just kind of touched on, right? Is it's really difficult when things are moving so fast to figure out what is or isn't what I need to solve my problem, right? What is or isn't agentic versus just traditional classic robotic process automation, for example, or what have you.
Right.
And so I wonder, just going back, do you think maybe there's a shift that's starting and perhaps was accelerated a bit by last week's reaction and ongoing reaction to the expectations that were through the roof for what GPT-5 was going to be when it was released by Sam Altman and OpenAI, and
Yeah.
proven out to be, and now folks are starting to say, okay, well, is that an incremental, and therefore, right? So how is this shifting, do you think, that dialogue in the C-suite and otherwise of any company, any size, around not just defining the problem, but better digging into and understanding what's the right tool, right? Do I need that chainsaw, or do I need a screwdriver, and how do I figure it out, you know?
Yeah, the backlash that has circled around ChatGPT 5 is amazing.
Oh, wow.
I think, yeah, and it's just grown since its release. Like initial reactions were one thing, and sort of getting a feel for it, but now it's just like they taken a step back, right? Should we be using previous models? And so well, I think that's what happens when the market moves too fast. And obviously, ChatGPT wanted to get that out there as fast as possible. But I think it comes down to trying to figure out, like to your point around kind of the right tool set, trying to figure out what is the best fit for the problem at hand. Yeah. And there's we talked in the past around like agents, workflows, like are they the same thing, right? There's RPA that's been around for years. At the end of the day, there's always a new thing that's coming up from a technology standpoint. New words, new models, new methods, whatever. So I think for a business executive or mid-sized company owner, they really have to understand what the right tool is to solve their problem, understand the problem first, and then can an agent be plugged in to help them, save them time? Can we build a RAG system that is going to really help solve our customer's problem, do customer support in a better way, a more automated way, right? Is there a need to have a small language model that we can build, or do we tap into an LLM? So those are all questions that everybody's, struggling with. And it's moving at such a rapid pace that new stuff's coming out. And you have to figure it out, right? What's MCP? What's A2A? What's this and that? So everybody's trying to keep up. But at the end of the day, I think the core need is still understand a business problem, right? Apply the right tool to it, automate it as much as you possibly can, and cut down on the manual efforts, and set up the right guardrails, for the system, right? Rules-based approach.
Yeah, I dig that. And building off of some of the stuff we talked about as well, which kind of triggers something for me, is like when you combine a lovable, and there are others in that space, right, that democratize the ability to go from idea to prototype, for example, and then to your point, and then you plug into that same environment, sandbox, guardrails, however we want to describe it, but the access to some models that are now made available to those same stakeholders to start to really figure out how to kind of dial it up and get that magic moment going. I think that's where you're starting to see, to your point, about enterprises moving from, oh my gosh, this is so exciting, to, hey, how do we move into a more scalable framework to drive into production this kind of innovation? Mm-hmm. And I know there's the Hugging Faces of the world, and they have a very strong community. And I think maybe, if you don't mind, just help the audience better understand, just at a macro level, maybe like, frontier models are kind of this, maybe these smaller language models and what have you that are, over here are this, and then what open source means to you when you hear open source. I know a lot of people get real nervous about when they hear open source, not realizing necessarily, what open source actually is.
Yeah.
At that knee-jerk reaction for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, shout out to Hugging Face, amazing team and platform. I mean, you can go to Hugging Face and find tons of tools, pre-built open source tool sets, models, right, that are out there, and just an amazing ecosystem, right, for knowledge. Open source, I think, is an amazing thing. It's basically the engineering community sharing things and building them together and growing it together, right? It's been around for for ages with Linux and the operating system. And then companies have just been built up around open source platforms. And there's actually a lot of companies that are out there right now that are open source in terms of their models. You can download it and, and use it. So amazing way to advance your engineering, learn, grow, and get a community to help you build. So amazing platform and tool set for sure.
Yeah.
One of the things that I wanted to bring up, which was kind of alluding to the previous topic, is the aspect of kind of security and the proliferation of LLMs across various different enterprises. And as all this stuff grows, right, and the use of models and things come out within Hugging Face and others, right, there's just a proliferation of use of that stuff from engineering community, especially in large enterprises. How do you monitor that and understand how much spend is actually happening within your enterprise, which is a tough job for, CIOs and CTOs to do when you do have, global communities either within your enterprise or, using open source stuff. So that is a challenge for sure for large company CIOs and CTOs. How do you track your spend? I saw a study from 1Password that just came out that's like the amount of usage of API keys that just gets sent around right within organizations is huge, and that's going to be a problem. People, large enterprises are going to spend millions of dollars with these third parties, LLM calls left and right, and they can't monitor it, they can't control it, and especially if you're pulling open source code and that's using various different API keys, so that'll be an interesting problem for people to solve coming up.
Yeah, no doubt. And it goes back to what you said before, just kind of starting with the business problem and or opportunity, because ultimately you can measure that usage and spend against the utility or the value that's created and therefore the ROI and yada, yada. But yeah, I think that's a really interesting and a really good point to make because, outcomes are one thing, activity is an entirely different thing.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Steve. See ya.